Welcome to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business. On today's program, I'm going to talk about the new book by Topher Morrison, the book on public speaking. They say the number one fear of all people is the fear of public speaking, followed by the second greatest fear, which is that of the fear of death. So that means at a funeral, more people would rather be in the casket than up on stage giving the eulogy. That's a famous quote in line from comedian Jerry Seinfeld, and it's also the foreword in the book on public speaking by Topher Morrison by the best-selling author Joel Comm. So Topher is a good friend of the program, has stepped in a number of times on the show to fill in as co-host, and he's been a guest on the program a number of times. He is a very accomplished public speaker and somebody that I've looked to many times for consult on both the program and business. And so locally, he's the managing director of Key Person of Influence, a local business accelerator based here in Tampa, Florida, and also a professional speaker. But today I want to review and talk about his latest book, again, the book on public speaking, which you can also see if you're watching the video on the television screen behind me. Throughout the discussion, learn more about the book at tophersbook.com. And I don't want to give away all of the goodies inside of his book, but there's a lot of great offers inside of this book that really make the purchase and the investment in reading this book well worth your time, including an offer inside of his book to get a public speaking contract that he paid $3,000 for free for filling out a survey. So check out the book, find out how to get that. And again, I don't want to give away all his secrets because I want you to read this book because it is well worth your investment in time and both money. So again, tophersbook.com for more information on how to pick up this book. But I want to go through the book. It's an easy read. I finished this book in about 3 nights, about an hour and a half, 2 hours of reading each night, just a little over 200 pages. Designed very well in the short little chapters, 30 chapters total with a lot of different sections. That's the type of book that I like to read. I'm oftentimes turned off by very long chapters. I like short little chapters of nothing more than 3 or 4 pages. That gives me time to take breaks and think about what I've read. And so this book here designed into 3 parts. The first part focusing on stage. The second part of the book focused about being on camera, which is what I do most of the time. And then the third part of it behind the desk, more the business end of the business. And so let's talk about some of the different chapters, and I'll do my best to get through all 30 of them. I have a limited time on each one of my programs. But first, it's important to distinguish how he does in the book between a public speaker and a professional speaker. Public speakers pay for the privilege to speak, whereas a professional speaker gets paid for the honor of speaking. And he references a great organization that I think many people are aware of, that is Toastmasters, which is local chapters across the country that teaches you the basics of speaking, how to remove the ums and the ahs, and how to be confident on stage. But what Toastmasters lacks is it doesn't teach you the business side of the profession. And so inside the book on public speaking, you're going to get the basics of public speaking, and you're also going to get the business side of the profession as well. He points out that all business owners are potential professional speakers as well. And so whatever business that you are leading and an owner of, consider yourself an expert in that business and consider stepping out onto the stage to enhance your credibility and your public profile through professional speaking. It's a great way to gain credibility. And so he talks about in the book, to become a professional speaker, you're going to have one of 2 things to become credible. You can become either a specialist, which is somebody who works in an industry for many years, or they can become an author. And we've talked about that on this program a number of times. Simply by writing a book, you become an instant credible person inside of your industry. And so that's something that if you're going to be a professional speaker, you've got to have some type of an authority. And so you can either become a specialist or you can become an author, which is the quicker way for many of us to gain credibility. After that opening chapter, he goes on to talk about the onstage aspect of the business. How to begin a presentation, and the point of how to begin a presentation is just to tell the audience what you're going to tell them. Don't begin with a long preamble about what you're going to tell them or why you're going to tell them. Just tell the audience what you are going to tell them. Goes into how to set the stage, and have very important point in this chapter is make sure that you have an introduction prepared for your presenter. It's oftentimes left to the promoter of the event to present the presenter, and it's going to be a weak introduction, and it's not going to deliver to the audience a lot about who you are and the message that you want to relay. So have a presentation, have a introduction prepared for your presenter. He points out that the introduction should have your top 3 credentials, the main benefits of what the audience will receive today from you as a speaker, and specific instructions for the audience to applaud when you come out. And then also when you're on stage, it's very important. This is something I also learned when I was doing stand-up comedy. Make sure that you're open to the audience. If you're standing behind props on the stage, then you kind of seem reserved and will not connect with the audience as much. I remember doing stand-up comedy, and one of the most basic things they told us is if you're going to take the microphone out of the mic stand, take the mic stand and place it behind you. Now, if you're going to keep the mic in the mic stand, that's another thing. But to take it out of the mic stand, take it out and put it behind you. And it's something today that irks me when I watch comedians or professional speakers do. If they take the mic out of it and they stand behind the mic stand, it looks terrible to me. And I think a lot of people probably don't realize how poor that looks in presenting. But it's important to, again, be open to the audience. Don't stand behind desks or lecterns if you don't need to. Be moving around, but don't move around so much that you are disconnecting from the audience. Make sure that you're moving around in the sense that you're connecting with the audience. About Chris Rock, a very well-known comedian, for instance, who constantly walks back and forth across the stage. I know a lot of comedians that irritates, but comedy and professional speaking, 2 separate things, but related in many ways. And I, again, have experience with being on stage as a amateur open micer. So I want to talk next about information versus entertainment. And this is something that Topher taught me when I was first starting out in the program doing, and it's something that, is still a challenge for me today. But the most popular shows always slide towards the right side of the scale, which is the more entertaining side of the scale. He talks about in the book, the most highly paid profession out there is that of actors, and that of the lowest paid profession is that of teachers. Teachers are informers, actors are entertainers, and it's unfortunate that it's that way, but this is America, this is our culture, we really can't do much about it. And so if you're doing a show, if you're speaking in front of people, you really want to lean your presentation more to the entertaining side with less information in it, but you want to balance the two, of course. But those who go on to the greatest success are going to have much more entertainment in their presentation. How thick is your skin? That's another chapter inside of this book, and it's important to separate yourself, who you are as a person, from what you are as a product. You're going to be getting a lot of criticism from your peers, from your audience, and if you're somebody who can't take criticism, then you're going to fail as a professional speaker. So it takes some points in there to be more critical of yourself than anyone else, and don't take yourself too seriously. And ultimately, whenever you're given criticism, always thank the individual for the feedback, whether it's good or bad, and whether you agree with it or not. Another chapter in the book, how's your credit? It's important to respect the intellectual property of others, and he used an example a couple times in the book of people stealing people's intellectual property, including one time when he erroneously took some of the intellectual property of somebody else. He knew it, but he didn't realize what he was doing because he was a young speaker at the time, and ended up getting called out on it. But he's, of course, a professional speaker is no different than somebody that's an artist, produces music, writes a book or an essay or publication. If you're taking information from them that is specific to them, be sure to give credit to them and don't lift their entire work, which, according to Topher inside of the book, is a common problem in professional speaking, where people will take somebody's entire presentation and then pawn it off on their own. So again, respect the intellectual property of other people. How's your energy? This is a unique topic inside of the book, but he talks about, when you interact with the crowd after the show, he gives specific examples and instructions on how to determine basically your personal space. And he talks about the energy field around us. And I think this is something we're all familiar with. It's, it's our personal space, and some people want to be all up in your face talking to you, which could turn you off. Some people want to stay at a distance. And so he gives advice on how to interact with the different types of people who want to be close, people that want to speak away from you. So he gives you examples and instructions on how to determine your energy field. So it's a unique chapter inside of the book. Of course, any professional speaker is going to look to sell some type of a product. Later on in the book, he talks about how the product is the slot machine of the speaker's business. And so if they don't have a product, then they're really hurting their business. They're hurting their audience by not giving something of value to their audience after the speaking. But it's important to know that when you're selling from the stage, don't focus just on sell for your audience. Focus on creating value, connecting with the audience, creating an unforgettable experience, and operating with a conscience. And then focus on what you are selling. How powerful are your points? He gives some good information on how to prepare a PowerPoint or a keynote presentation if you are using those inside of your presentation. 3 worst things in a slide. He points out a picture of yourself, more text than pictures, and words and pictures without contrast. And so some good information inside of that chapter as well. And then to close his whole entire section, putting it all together, don't wing it. I mean, so many of us say they just go on and wing it. You don't want to go ahead and wing it. So I know I show up on my show a lot of times and I just wing it. But as a presenter, you don't want to. Take the time to memorize your presentation, and he gives some great instructions inside of the book on how to memorize your presentation. When we come back from a break, we'll talk about the other 2 parts of the book, how to prepare yourself for being on camera, and also more on the business side of professional speaking. So pick up the book at tophersbook.com. A lot of great offers over there, and more about this program at thatbusinessnetwork.com. We'll be back in a moment. And welcome back to the program. Today we're talking about the book on public speaking, a new book by professional speaker Topher Morrison, good friend of the program, and a book that I recently read and highly recommend to you, whether you are a professional speaker or somebody who is just looking to get on stage and promote your business a little bit more as a public speaker, as we talked about the difference in the opening segment. The second part of the book talks about being on camera, and this is where I've derived a lot of benefit from my relationship with Topher. He is an excellent presenter, both on and off camera, in front of a crowd. And, went through his Key Person of Influence Business Accelerator program a couple of years and picked up a lot of tips about interviewing and being in front of a camera, some of which I still struggle with myself. But when I find myself doing them, I kick myself and always think, Topher said not to do it like that. One of them, for instance, is when you're interviewing somebody, you want to ask, pointed questions. You don't want to say stuff like, tell me about yourself, or tell me about that, or tell me more. Those are very general, open-ended questions that really to a guest means you could go in any one of several different directions. I find myself doing that from time to time, and I kick myself every time I do that. But you want to ask pointed questions and stay away from the what we call the lazy questions. Tell me more, tell me about that, or tell me about yourself. Again, pointed questions is the key to being a great interviewer, and then listen to the answer. And a lot of times, as I, interview so many people, I'll have a question or two that I'm looking to ask, up and coming, but then they'll answer it inside of one of the other questions that I asked, and which means because I don't pre-plan all of the interviews, I got to think fast and think of a different question to ask, and that's something that I've learned over time how to do effectively. But if you're, a beginning interviewer, it can be natural to just want to go ahead and ask that question again because that's what you've got written down. As you develop interviewing skills, it's important to listen to the answer and then play off of what they say, and then take the interview into whatever direction is most entertaining and informative for your audience. A good point in this chapter, ask the question behind the question. He's a good friend of John Heffron, the 2004 winner of the Last Comic Standing competition. Ironically enough, was the competition, or the year that I actually stood in front of in the line and went to the, I went to the Tampa Improv to compete for the Last Comic Standing locally. Meaning I got in line with the producers and obviously didn't get anywhere in it, but that was my first time on stage. But John Heffron was the winner of that particular season. And in the book, he talks about how John Heffron was, doing interview after winning the Last Comic Standing season. And the first question that he always got was, tell us how it felt to win as season 4, Last Comic Standing. And he got tired of answering that same question. And then one day, a host asked him the question, aren't you getting tired of answering the same question about how you felt over and over again after you won Last Comic Standing? And so now he had a different direction, a question that he wasn't expecting to get, and it gave him a chance to open up and talk about things that he was not given the opportunity to talk about. So ask the question behind the question, a lot more specific examples of what that really means inside of the book. He also has a chapter on guest skills, and so if you're the interviewer, that's what we were just talking about, but flip the script as a guest and how to get featured on national as well as local programs. Talks about that. The key at that point, you always want to be the one who bears the greater weight of the relationship. If you're the interviewer, the pressure's all on you, but if you're the guest, the pressure's all on you. So it depends on what side of the table that you're on, but regardless, the pressure is still on you. So if you're a guest, make the host jobs easy. Present them with information on yourself. Talk about a one sheet or a one page in a little bit, which basically is nothing more than a bio of yourself, your accomplishments, awards, suggested interview questions. Again, that makes the host job easy. A lot of hosts on television, podcasts do very little prep work on their guests, and they really don't even know who they're talking to sometimes when they come into the studios. And so the easier that you can make the host job, the more likely they are to be open to you appearing on their program. A couple tips when you're on the camera: don't look at the lens, look through the camera, and always be sure to smile. Talk to the host if you're side by side. Don't focus on the camera. It's a conversation between the two. The next section of the book, Behind the Desk. This is the business side of professional speaking. And in the opening chapter, which is chapter 16 in the book, it talks about getting a professional speaking contract. And there's, again, a special offer inside of the book where he offers his own contract that he had prepared for $3,000 to you for taking a simple survey. So check out the book, again, available over at tophersbook.com. Again, the book on public speaking by author Topher Morrison, to pick up a copy of that contract and save yourself several $1,000s. And then you can tweak it to your own conditions simply by having your own attorney, adjust the clauses to, make it fit. A lot better than starting from scratch. Stop thinking you're Kevin Costner. One of the points that he points into this book. When you're Kevin Costner, you remember the Field of Dreams. Build it and they will come. That's not true in a lot of things in life, and it's not true in the professional speaking business. If you're putting on an event, for instance, he talks about how many people will, rent the venue, throw out some promotions, put up a place to order tickets, and voila, here they all come. That's not how it works. You've got to really, dig your heels in and promote the event. He talks about how you want to wait to the last possible moment a lot of times to book a venue. He uses the example of the Karate Kid with the crane kick. He doesn't use that until the last possible moment in the Karate Kid when he is fighting. I forget the kid's name at this point. But if you book a venue at the very beginning, you may overbook the venue. And he talks about how oftentimes you can start small expectations, and then if you're getting people that are more than what you expected, you can call the venue, ask them for more space, and a lot of times you're going to get that cheaper than what you would have gotten had you just booked a larger room at the start. So a good example of that inside of the book. Inside of the book, he also talks about being sure that you have your refund policy in place, avoid percentages, use actual amounts, get their agreements via phone, or get them to say, yes, I agree on the phone. It locks them in much more. It talks about, examples of, refund situations where people were coming to an event and then could not come, and how he handles those situations. So from a professional speaker input or standpoint, a lot of great information on how to run your business inside of this section. How to find a promoter. Nobody's really going to promote you until you have a credibility or a presence first. But once you have, once you're at that level, he uses an example of one specific promoter and what they look for. And this is the backbone of the Key Person of Influence Business Accelerator program, and inside of the most successful business owners and what they all share. They share clarity, credibility, variability, visibility, and collaboration. And I've talked about that in another show on where Topher was talking about the collaboration age, and he goes into these different points as well. Also in talking with Topher about the Key Person of Influence Accelerator Program. So those are the 5 things that all successful business owners all share in common. They're clear on their points, they're credible, they're variable, visible, and they collaborate with others. But I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this program into those different points. Also, he has a formula in there for creating how much you get paid. A lot of professional speakers, he says, just throw out a number. It's not really based on any logic or any actual business analysis. He talks about how he analyzed his own business and comes up with his own speaking fees based on actual logic. Talks about the 1 page and having that prepared and ready for all of your presentations. A 1 page, again, is a sheet on yourself that you give to potential hosts or promoters that has your brief bio, what you'll learn in the keynote, testimonials, as well as booking info. Also, the chapter of the risk minimizers, talks more about, specific things inside of the contract and examples of where his contract really saved him. And so be sure, again, to pick up a copy of the contract, again, offered as a benefit of reading the book over at tophersbook.com for taking a simple survey. The specific offer, again, inside of the book on public speaking. You're going to have some bumps in the road. And one thing I like about Topher, he's always talking about his successes, but he also talks about his failures. I'm always leery of the person who nearly always just talks about how great they are and how successful they are. Topher's had ups and he's had downs, just like I've had ups and I've had downs, and all of us have that too. And so he talks about, those challenges and those triumphs inside of his book. And so a great author to pick up here with the book of public speaking. Goes into specifics on, projections or projectors, whether you need a rear screen, a front screen projector, the lumens of the lighting inside it. So I'm not going to go into a lot of that, but when you're a presenter on a stage, all that stuff comes into play. And if the audio video people are not up on their game, he often has to step in and make amends to what they are doing inside of the event. And so he talks about that inside of the book as well. Good chapter on selling your seminars. Never sell like you want to be sold. Sell like humans need to be sold. Not everyone thinks as you do. And this is an area that I always struggle with because I seem to have a unique training or thought pattern, and I guess everybody else does too. And so when I'm designing something or thinking about how to sell, I'm always thinking about, yeah, that makes sense. I like that. But then somebody gives me feedback and I don't like that because I'm thinking about me personally. It's important to think about your audience and who you're trying to sell to and sell to them. And remember that not everybody thinks as that you do. And so then he goes on to talk about building your team, and then at the very end of the book, are you committed or are you passionate? And he closes the book with, a committed person will sacrifice their current level of comfort to ensure more comfort at the end. You must have a mentor, not a coach. Talks about the differences between that. He is a mentor to many professional speakers and as an author inside of his book to help you with your professional speaking if you would like. And then always do what your mentor says and make the sacrifice. So again, the book on public speaking now available over at tophersbook.com. Topher Morrison, the managing director of Key Person of Influence and a professional speaker with 25, 30 years of professional speaking experience across multiple generations and multiple business cycles. Also throughout the book talks about the evolution of the craft and the profession also. So again, check it out, tophersbook.com. A lot of great resources that he references inside of the book. Opportunity to pick up a speaking contract for nothing more than filling out a survey. And again, just an overall great read if you're a professional speaker. Also a great read if you're somebody looking to just get on stage as a public speaker and promote yourself and your business. So again, highly recommended, tophersbook.com by Topher Morrison. Keep in mind, new episodes of this program air each weekday morning, 9 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com. And we're always looking for guests and content for the program. Visit tbsinterview.com for more information. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.